Hi everybody, and thank you so much for watching this video and listening to the first chapter of my story titled, as of right now, So Funny Story. This is actually going to be turned into a graphic novel, but when I started writing it just as like a written novel. So while I wrote this chapter like that, the rest of the story won't be, written like this. It'll be illustrated. But just to give you guys a little snippet of what the story is about and who the characters are, I thought I would go ahead and record a reading of this chapter. So without any further ado, here is chapter 1 of So Funny Story. Here's the thing about being dead that nobody tells you. It's incredibly confusing. You don't know where you are, who you are, or when you are. You don't know what happened to you, and you don't know where you will go if any of the religions of the world are to be true. You're just kind of there, existing in a semi-conscious void, experiencing the world around you as some third-party, semi-omniscient narrator unsure of the story they're about to experience. This story starts ironically in a cemetery. It's dark and windy, and the remaining leaves that cling desperately to the spindly branches of their trees fight to hold on with each gust of wind. Many fail as they break away and flail in the air before tumbling across the dry, dead grass on the ground. Above the trees, the sky is full of rolling, dark clouds that part at times to reveal the shining full moon, only to hide it again moments later. Ignoring the wind chill, in the center of the cemetery are the twins, Jane and Jason Klein. How I know that, I'm not sure. Again, this whole being dead thing is pretty confusing. They both carry flashlights and have cameras attached to their chests. Jane's camera is strapped awkwardly around her, since she decided to wear her denim jacket that is 3 sizes too large for her. The fabric bunches awkwardly under the straps. Jason, on the other hand, is also wearing a jacket, but his camera is strapped underneath it. He doesn't seem to care when the wind causes the open jacket to cover the lens. In fact, Jason doesn't seem to care about much at all. While Jane marches forward, her head and eyes moving back and forth, searching for something, Jason's eyes are turned towards the ground, his pace more of a meandering stroll than a determined rush like his sister's. His eyes lock onto a gravestone, and he squats down to read the name. In loving memory of Roussel, who fell asleep August 11th, 1898. Fell asleep, huh? That's one way to put it. There's more engraved on the stone, but it's so worn down and uncared for that it's impossible to read. Jason squints, attempting to make out the words, but soon gives up with a sigh. He wonders how old she was. He takes another moment to carefully wipe off some of the looser patches of dirt and clear the dead leaves that have gathered in front of the grave. Once it's as clean as it can be, given his limited capabilities, Jason stands up with a groan that sounds far too old for his 22-year-old self. Finally, he lifts his head and scans the area for his sister, letting out another, more purposeful groan when he realizes that she disappeared, walking so far ahead of him that she is now obscured by the trees lining the cemetery pathway. Over the wind, Jason hears a crow cackling, mocking the siblings for losing each other in the dark. The same crow can be heard from the cemetery's entrance, where another visitor stands. Zania King doesn't have any fancy equipment on her like the twins do. In one hand, she does have an umbrella, neatly collapsed and folded, while her other hand fiddles with the golden cross necklace around her neck. The necklace matches the multiple gold earrings she is also wearing, as well as a couple bracelets around her wrists. She's pretty dressed up considering she's alone, outside, in the middle of the night. She's wearing a pink corduroy dress on top of a black turtleneck, and heels, for God's sake. God. Do I believe in God? Zania grasps her necklace in her free hand, closes her eyes briefly, and takes a deep breath before walking further into the cemetery. Just like Jane, her eyes constantly scan the area around her, searching for something. Unlike Jane, however, she walks more cautiously, her shoulders tensing at every sound she hears. The leaves rustling, the birds in the distance, the squeaking hinges of the rusty gate behind her, each sound heightens her anxiety more. It's ridiculous, really. What is she expecting? A ghost to appear and scream in her face? Zania screams as a crow calls loudly, and out of nowhere flies towards her face, only to change its direction at the last minute to avoid hitting her. Well, I stand corrected. Maybe there are things to be afraid of in this cemetery after all. Evil birds. I'd laugh if I could. Once the bird is long gone, Zinnia finally stands up straight and turns around. Nope, that's a sign. I'm not doing this, I can't. She mutters to herself, making her way back to the gate. I am not dealing with some demon birds. Her path, however, is blocked by yet another animal. Sitting at the center of the cemetery's arched gateway is a small cat. It's mostly still, with only its tail flicking back and forth. Its eyes stayed focused on Zinnia. Well, that is, if it even has eyes. This cat isn't a normal cat, I'm aware of that much at least. Normal cats are black or gray or tabby. Normal cats are a semi-translucent, shimmering blue color. On top of that, normal cats have fur and whiskers and eyes and a nose. This cat has none of that. Really, it looks more like a blue light in the shape of the cat than a real cat. Zinnia, while caught off guard, isn't scared of the blue cat-shaped light. Her flawlessly painted lipstick lips part slightly as her eyes widen behind long lashes. She doesn't scream. The cat doesn't move. After a windswept moment, Zinnia slowly lowers herself, squatting on the ground and holding out her hand. Hi there, baby, she greets the creature in a high-pitched whisper. When the cat doesn't react, she responds with the standard, ever so effective, pss, 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 pss. The cat's tail flicks back and forth and Zinnia sighs. She tries again. Are you lost? Do you need my help? Finally, the cat stands and makes its way towards Zinnia's still outstretched hand. However, before Zinnia could touch it, it turns and darts a few feet away towards the center of the cemetery. It pauses for a moment, looking back at Zinnia expectantly. Oh, okay, Zinnia agrees, standing up. She begins to follow the creature, only to hesitate and flinch when she feels a fat raindrop fall on top of her head. Before she can fully process what that means, it's followed by another raindrop, then another. She quickly unfolds and extends her umbrella, hoping that the quest her new companion is taking her on won't take too long. The wind howls and thunder rumbles as the rain begins to fall more steadily. Deep in the more wooded area of the cemetery, Jason holds his jacket above his head, speedwalking down the dirt path. Jane! He calls out, his voice carried away by the wind. He whines. Jane! Where are you? He spins in a circle as he looks around desperately for his sibling. He almost regrets agreeing to accompany Jane on her ghost hunting adventure. He knew the weather predicted rain, and it was cold and dark and gloomy, but he was lonely and bored and looking for anything to get him out of the house and away from their parents. When Jane suggested this outing, he just couldn't say no. He wishes he did say no, though, when he feels his foot get soaked after stepping into a particularly muddy puddle. His lips quirk down as he tries to shake off the excess mud from his sneakers. It doesn't help much. Accepting his misfortune, Jason sighs and continues down the path. He's about to call out again when thunder interrupts him, and, to his horror, a shadowy figure suddenly appears just a couple feet from him. He curses and jumps back as the figure lifts a long weapon in its hand. Jason holds up his fist and responds, which is just plain stupid considering he doesn't know how to fight. Despite that, he's about to swing until lightning follows the thunder and illuminates the figure in front of him, revealing none other than his own twin. What the hell, Jane? He shouts, lowering his fist, his shoulders sagging. What? Jane responds innocently, causing her brother to groan. Why did you decide to sneak up on me in the middle of a storm? And why are you so calm while getting absolutely soaked, by the way? And why are you carrying a stick around? Jane looks at the stick in her hands as if just noticing it. She ignores the first two questions, opting to answer the third. She shrugs. It's a cool stick, she states simply. Look. Jason leans forward and squints at the piece of wood Jane is holding out towards him. Water droplets had gathered on his glasses from the rain, however, blurring his vision. Noticing his struggle, Jane explains. It has carvings on it, from bugs, but the rest of it is completely smooth and straight. Okay, so? Jason questions, glancing above his glasses. So that's cool. Right, okay then. The cemetery yells at the twins to get moving when a bird calls again from above them. Lightning strikes simultaneously with a roll of thunder. The wind whistles past their ears. Okay, let's book it back to the car, Jason says, and Jane follows him without a word. They can't walk as fast as Jason would like. The way back is downhill, so they have to step carefully to make sure they don't slip and slide down the mud. Jane does slip a couple of times, only saved from a muddy death when Jason grabs the back of her jacket. Jason can see the break in the trees ahead of them and begins to walk fast towards it. It takes Jane a moment to process the change in speed before she matches it. Before she catches up, however, she catches sight of some fast-moving object approaching from the corner of her vision. There's no point in calling out to her brother. He wouldn't be able to react fast enough anyway. So Jane simply stands still and watches as a rogue soccer ball rolls down the hill, bounces off a tree root, and flies through the air, hitting the side of Jason's knee. It doesn't hit him hard, but just the shock and exact angle of the hit causes Jason to trip over his own feet and land bottom first on the soaked ground. Jason's eyes are wide as he stares at the ball, which has now bounced and rolled gently next to his lap. He looks back at Jane, who simply points up the hill to where the ball came from. At the top of said hill, ゚Socials゚ struggles with a treacherous journey of her own. She's still following the cat, having realized that the creature isn't giving her much choice. When the rain started to come down in torrents, ゚Socials゚ apologized to it and turned around to leave. But the cat just materialized out of thin air in front of her, blocking her path. Now ゚Socials゚ finds herself in an open clearing towards the back of the cemetery where the newer graves are placed. Even though it's a much more well-kept area of the cemetery, it too is a mess of dirt, torn apart flowers, loose twigs, and dead leaves thanks to the strong winds. After taking in her surroundings, ゚Socials゚ turns around to look for her feline guide, only to find that it has disappeared. So this must be where the spirit, assuming it's a spirit, wanted to lead her. The wind blew up into her umbrella, causing ゚Socials゚ to grip onto it with both hands to stop it from flying away. What is so special about this location that the spirit stubbornly dragged her here through the storm? Why is so important? She scans her surroundings again, trying to see if anything stands out to her. She's about to give up when her eyes land on another visitor across the yard, towards the back gate. The wind blows against her back and into her umbrella again, pushing her forward. But ゚Socials゚ holds her ground, opting to watch them just for a couple moments to see if anything might be wrong. This person, a boy maybe just a little bit younger than her, she realizes, is sitting on the ground in front of a grave, his head bowed. He doesn't seem fazed by the weather around him, instead staying impossibly still through it all. Next to him is a duffel bag, which he eventually unzips and reaches into. Out of it, he pulls a crumpled bouquet of flowers. ゚Socials゚ can't see what kind, but when the wind blows again, most of the petals detach from the flowers and fly into the boy's face and off into the distance. This seems to be the trigger as the boy quickly scrambles up and violently throws the flowers to the ground. As soon as they touch the dirt, they're blown away. ゚Socials゚'s eyes scan over the boy's figure to see if maybe he is injured in any way, but the only marks you can see on the boy's clothes are the dirt stains on his sweatpants from kneeling on the ground. Her eyes leave the boy when rain hits her face and she realizes her umbrella has folded inside out. On the opposite side of the hill, Jane and Jason make their way up to the boy, the soccer ball held firmly in Jason's hands. ゚Socials゚ pauses her battle with her umbrella as she watches the twins approach the stranger. They exchange a couple of words, then Jason hands over the ball. The stranger stares down at it and begins to turn away. It is at this moment when the cemetery seems to have run out of patience, and the umbrella is yanked out of ゚Socials゚'s hands by an invisible force. Its fabric ripples, and its frame spreads and bends in arachnid fashion, skittering through the air like a spider would dart across the floor. ゚Socials゚ tries to chase her umbrella across the grounds, reaching out to catch it, but the handle is just out of reach. Realizing she can't stop it, she shouts out a warning to the other 3 young adults. Her warning only allows enough time for the strangers to turn their head towards her before the umbrella flies right into the face of the boy with the duffel bag. That is how ゚Socials゚ King met San him.